do business here. So in order to compete internationally in this world we live in, what we're proposing is to eliminate the loopholes in our tax code. I practiced public accounting for a couple of decades before I got involved in elected office, and tax was my area. And I will tell you, it's about 10 times the size of the Bible with no good news in it at all. So what we're suggesting is to eliminate the loopholes, take that savings, buy down the rate so we can compete internationally, have the top corporate and individual rate be 25%. And we have to do individual and corporate together because of the proliferation of S corps and LLCs, people doing business under a corporate structure that they're paying taxes as individuals. So we would do that, and then get the 51% of Americans that aren't paying any individual income tax back on the rolls. So it would just be a fairer, flatter, simpler code. And according to the Congressional Budget Office, again, that's a nonpartisan group, they use a static score, a microeconomic score, and what it does is it scores revenue neutral. That means in total, there's no tax increase, there's no tax decrease. But when you take the same tax package and put it into a macroeconomic, dynamic economic model, what you see is huge economic growth, revenue increases for the federal government, which would help a whole lot right now. So that's kind of the proposal on the revenue side. And all of this is in the budget that has been passed over to the Senate. And they killed it, but I still would like to think we have to resolve this before the end of the year. This is another way to look at what the problem is. You all have to match your revenues with your expenditures at home. If you're a business person, you certainly can't spend more than you take in. The green is the revenues throughout history, and again, projected on what current law is. And the red is the spending over history, and then past the 2011 is projected based on current law. And as you can see, revenues are generally just under 20% of our GDP. And that is kind of the target where we need to keep them. It's the spending side that's gotten kind of out of whack. What we're trying to do is get that spending side back in check with our revenues. And so that's just a good visual to see what the problem is. This is spending as a percent of our GDP. And again, you can see historically, if we do nothing, that's where we're going. The proposal coming out of the House is the green line, which would put us on a totally different trajectory. We kind of see it as a choice of two futures. That's our history, that's where we're headed if we do nothing, and that's where we could be headed. And so with that, I believe we'll just turn it over to all of you. What I might ask is, it's probably good acoustics in here. If you might just stand up, give us your name, and then let us know what advice and counsel or question or that you have, comments. Sure.
My name is Martin Dickinson. I teach at the KU Law School. I had a question on the tax front and specifically the Ryan plan, which became the path to prosperity, correct?
Yeah, Ryan's had a couple plans, but the path to prosperity is a House bill, yes.
Right, okay, and that's what also he titled his plan. His plan proposes that the corporation income tax be entirely eliminated, and that income tax not be charged on capital gain, dividends, or interest. Obviously, the result of that is that only working people would pay income tax. The wealthy families in America would simply incorporate all their assets and never again pay a dime of income tax to the United States. Is that something you support?
Well, number one, the facts are wrong. In the Ryan plan, there is a 25% corporate income tax rate. So I don't know where the...
Well, I've read the entire 70 pages, and that is not what it says.
Those are the facts. You might want to go read it again. And if we need to send you the direct piece, I'm happy to do that.
I'll be glad to send you the parts that,
okay,
where he states in 2 separate portions.
What you might be looking at is a different Ryan plan. So that's, Ryan had a roadmap to something. Does anybody? It was a previous, it was like 2 years ago. He's our big idea guy.
I'm speaking of the Path to
Path,
Prosperity,
okay.
which was issued on April 6th.
Right. No, top corporate rate is 25% on individual corporations and international.
And the tax on capital gains, and can you finish this question?
Yes. I think in the Path to Prosperity, it is remaining current at the 15%. But we would like to talk about maybe bringing it down to 0. I mean, we would take a look at that to see if we could find any more loopholes or special tax expenditures to eliminate. That's certainly, Ways and Means is my committee, the tax committee. So we would love to be able to find the pay-fors, but the underlying concept is for it to be revenue neutral on a static model. Yeah.
Dave Kiner, you mentioned that, which is true, the corporate tax is the highest in the world, 38% it is, 35. But the Economist, which I happen to be reading, but it was last month, they showed what the actual corporate tax was, and what at the end, not just what it's, and all the deductions and so on. I mean, whether it's for airplanes or lunches or whatever, the actual tax paid by corporations in the U.S. is much lower than the rest of the world. And just a letter to the Economist, the last one, it says, why she could not afford to set up her new business in low tax United States. She could not afford to trip in health insurance bills. Now, you're pretty against health insurance, and I would like to ask you why, if all the legislatures get the health insurance, why the average citizen can't get what you get, and also how are you going to address the health insurance, which they say they don't want to come to the U.S. This is a British magazine, Economist, because of the high health insurance bills, which seems contradictory. You're mostly Republicans and the Tea Party are against any government support for health tax and helping, and yet that's why corporations don't want to come to the U.S. I think that's contradictory in what you're pushing, and also the actual tax rate, what the corporations pay, is much lower than what you say. You get all the deductions. Even Buffett from Omaha said that, I think he pays 17% of his total income, and most of them in his office pay higher percent of their income. So with all the deductions, I mean, you always say, oh, they're paying 35%. That's the high too, but with all the deductions the rich get to take and the businesses get to take, it's contradictory. So I'm independent. I don't belong to any political party, but I'm really upset by what both parties and the president have made a mess in Washington. And my 401k has gone down. So I'm really upset at all politicians. So.
Yeah. Well, me too. I'm not a big fan myself. And you make the perfect case for why we need the tax reform package that I just explained. The people that take advantage of the loopholes are the people, the very wealthy, that can afford high-powered tax attorneys. They are the people that can afford to have high-powered lobbyists walk the halls of Congress and protect their special interest. Unfortunately, most small businesses in Kansas don't have a high-powered tax attorney or a high-powered lobbyist walking the halls of Congress. So they have to pay 35%. They don't get any special deductions. And that's precisely why we feel like fundamental reform is necessary. Eliminate the loopholes, make it fairer and flatter for everyone so that we can compete. Your statistics, I'd love to get an article, a copy of that article, because I have 4 or 5 articles that have done a similar comparison, and they always say lies, damn lies, and statistics, but mine says just the opposite, that internationally we are, in fact, when you're talking about the effective tax rate, about we still are the highest. But I'd love to compare that article because what I want is the facts. I'm tired of people lying to me. I just want the facts. I'm a data-driven decision maker, and then we'll make our decisions based on the facts. When it comes to health care, we do hear that a lot, that people can't afford the health care program. And we think the courts are going to find it unconstitutional if they don't, if the landscape in Washington changes, it could be repealed. And certainly we had an alternative plan last year that would be the jumping off point to replace it. We feel like this is an area that we have to address, but the president's plan didn't really address the issue, which is the rising cost, what businesses, both small and large, are panicked about. So we feel like we need to go back and address the issue, which is the cost. So we'll see if we have an opportunity to do that. I'm going to come back to you since you've had a chance. Yeah.
I'm Mark Barble. I live here in Lawrence and in the 2nd District. And I'm a proud Sprint employee. The proposed takeover of T-Mobile by AT&T, if this is allowed to go through and does happen, we know from history what this type of duopoly would impact Kansas and Kansas citizens and Kansas employees. Anytime one company or two companies control 80% of the market, history is very clear. Innovation goes down, along with that the risk that goes down, and prices go up for consumers, hurting consumers. Also, you've got a great track record on trying to champion and helping champion for Kansas jobs with the Mars plant, and then also with your upcoming jobs fair. We know the impact that this could potentially have to Kansas and Kansas jobs. Sprint is the largest private employer in Kansas, over 7,000 employees. Many of those in Congressman Yoder's district and also in your district. And so we would love to see this deal killed outright and protect Kansas consumers, protect Kansas jobs.
Well, you lay out the case very well. I mean, obviously they're a great partner in our community and the state of Kansas, and it would be devastating to our economy to lose them. And so I think all of your delegation from Kansas is keeping a very close eye on how this proceeds. And I think we have all hands on deck to ensure that the process is fair and the analysis is thoughtful. For those of you that may not be aware, I think we're in the midst of like a 180-day period where the FCC is finding information. They have the first shot at it, and I understand they're giving AT&T, T-Mobile quite a time right now. And then Department of Justice will have an opportunity to do the same and to review, because they're there to protect us as consumers. And so we will be watching that and monitoring that every day and at every step of the way from Congress. But I think that will be our role, is to make sure that process is fair. Yeah.
I have a question about the waste, fraud, and abuse. My name is Bob Johnson, retired. The Affordable Health Care Act said that we're going to spend about $800 billion over the next 10 years to implement it. We know that that's changed quite a bit to a higher number. But one of the things that happened was they said that Medicare was going to provide $400 billion on waste, fraud, and abuse to help pay for that. And to me, that averages out about $40 billion a year. This thing has been in effect about a year and a half. How are we doing on our waste, fraud, and abuse? And is there any way of reporting that back to the people?
Great question. I haven't heard or seen any reports about the waste, fraud, and abuse yet, but we can be assured that there is plenty. And